Hello, my friends. So today we are going to be reading chapters 12 and 13 in our story, One Crazy Summer. But before we do that, I do want to recap chapter 11, which was titled, Even the Earth is a Revolutionary. So we see that the girls stay after breakfast for this program. We notice that these Black Panthers are actually teaching these kids real lessons, but are connecting them to revolutionaries, so people who want to make a change. We also meet Sister Makumbu, who is a kind teacher that the sisters feel like they can trust. We also formally meet Hirohito, who the girls ran into because he was the boy who almost hit them on his flying T. Now, at the end of the chapter, Delphine becomes annoyed at her sisters because they ruin her plan to ask Sister Makumbu about their mother's name. Remember, in the end of that chapter, Vanetta and Fern kind of burst out in the middle of this class and are like, "Oh, well, we didn't come here to learn about revolutionaries. We came here for breakfast." Right? So we are going to continue with chapter 12, which is called Crazy Mother Mountain. So let me get my little tool. Okay, Crazy Mother Mountain. After the program ended for the day, we stayed out as long as we could. Remember, they didn't want to go home because Cecile told them to stay out, don't rush getting home so quickly, right? So they didn't want to kind of rush to get home. They didn't really want to go home to Cecile. By 6 o'clock, we were hungry. Whether she liked it or not, Cecile had to let us inside her green stucco house. When she opened the door, all she said was, "You back?" Then she spread the tablecloth on the floor and brought out shrimp lo mein and egg rolls from the kitchen. She had probably gone out to mean Lady Ming's while we were at the center. We washed up and sat Indian style around the food. I said the blessing, and then I asked, "Why the Black Panthers call you Inzilla?" No use letting my curiosity go itching. If I had to ask someone, I might as well go straight to the mountain, the Crazy Mother Mountain. So there she's just calling her mother the Crazy Mother Mountain, and that is where our chapter title comes in. She gave me a blank stare. Like I said, something wrong. Then she corrected me. Nzilla. In a place of shrugs, my sister and I shot one another glances. That was not a Brooklyn sound or an Alabama sound. It was probably not even an honest to goodness Oakland sound. So she's saying this name doesn't sound like it belongs from someone who came from Brooklyn or Alabama or even someone who lives in Oakland. It sounds like it came from somewhere else. Instead of trying it out, I said, "Why they call you that?" My sisters followed. "Isn't your name Cecile?" "Yeah, Cecile." She said, "My name is Inzilla. Inzilla is a poet's name. My poems blow the dust off surfaces to make clear and true paths. Inzilla." I gave her a plain stare. Plain and blank. She's probably staring like this because she might be a little confused. I know Miss Kempton right now is a little bit confused, right? It might as well have been an eye roll. She probably hated my father's plain face on me. That the plain way about him was the plain way about me. I didn't know about blowing dust and clearing paths. I knew about hot combing thick heads of hair and ironing pleated wool skirts for school. She said, "It's Yoruba for the path." Now, Yoruba is just a language that is spoken in many African countries. Okay, so it's just another language. So it's in a different language for the path. I knew better than to roll my eyes at her so-called name and where she said it came from. Instead, I asked her where Yoruba was. She quickly told me it was a people, a nation, in the land of our ancestors. Vanetta asked, "You mean Prattville, Alabama?" This time, I wouldn't kick Vanetta. Good old Vanetta Prattville was where Papa and Big Ma were originally from. They weren't from big city Mobile, Montgomery, or Selma, but from Prattville. And truth be told, my daddy and my grandma came from a one cow town rubbing next to Prattville. They just said Prattville because it was more known. So, up here, she says, when Vanetta asks, you mean Prattville, Alabama? She's saying that because that is where her pa and her big ma grew up. Okay? I asked, so you can change your name anytime you want to? Vanetta, to anything you want to. Fern, to anything you can spell? Cecile said, it's my name, myself. I can name myself. And if I'm not the one I was, but am now a new self, why would I call myself by an old name? So right now, Cecile changed her name to Nzilla. Could this be a way of hiding who she really is? We don't know. Maybe we'll find out. Then I said, if you keep changing your name, how will people know you or your poems? When my sisters and I speak, one right after the other, it's like a song we sing, a game we play. We never need to pass signals. We just fire off rat-a-tat-tat-tat. Delphine, Vanetta, Fern. Me. Suppose you got famous for writing poems. Vanetta. Then everyone knew your name, Fern, and you couldn't hide. She said, my poems aren't about that. Fame-seeking poems, they're the people's art. Although yesterday she didn't want to have anything to do with the people. Remember, they're going back to that argument that the girls overheard about between her and those Black Panthers. For the people, right? I said, what if all the people could recite all of your poems? Vanetta. And they said them on the radio. Fern. And you became famous. Me. You couldn't hide then. Fern. Surely couldn't. She said, who you all working for? I think y'all working for the man undercover. The FBI. The COINTELPRO. So the man, when they talk about the man, they are just referring to someone who works in the government or some other authority in a position. They're in a position of power. So for example, somebody who works for or in the FBI, right? That is who they were talking about. Are y'all working for the man, the government? I knew about the FBI from the Sunday night show and from the news, but who were the COINTELPRO? Cecile knew she had us baffled and took control of the talk like she had grabbed both the ball and the jacks. Oh, they're slick all right, she said. The feds hire midgets to front as kids. They infiltrate families with long-lost cousins who don't look a thing like you, but you take them in because that's how colored folks do. And before you can say, way down home, your long-lost kin are documenting your every move for their weekly secret meetings with the man. So Cecile here is just kind of almost half jokingly with them saying, oh, are you guys from the FBI? Because you're asking me so many questions. And she's kind of explaining how sometimes they hire people to pretend to be kids who are long lost cousins to go in to spy on people, right? To spy, to ask them questions, to find out some secret information. Family don't tell on family, I said. Not real family. Surely don't. That's what you think, Cecile said. She went after Vanetta first because Vanetta was needy in a way that Fern and I weren't. Her eyes stayed wide and fearful. They get you alone and scared. They say, Vanetta Gaither, do you love your country? Do you love your father, your sisters, your Uncle Darnell in Vietnam and Big Ma in Brooklyn? At Fern, She aimed. Little girl, do you love your doll baby? Do you love Captain Kangaroo? Your kindergarten teacher? Graham crackers and story time? Well, if you want to keep all of that safe, tell us all you know about the person named Cecile Johnson, also known as your mother. So this is just an example. This did not really happen, but Cecile is saying, oh, these are the kinds of questions they'll ask you to answer questions about me. Fern said her name was not Little Girl, that she was going into the 2nd grade and that she watched Mighty Mouse and not Captain Kangaroo. Before Cecile got to me, I said, they don't ask kids nothing. No one listens to kids. If this was Red China, they would. The Red Chinese Communist Party don't play. Kids younger than that little girl turn their mother and father over to the Reds for treason and re-education. We're not in Red China, I told her. To that, she only grunted like, that's what you think. So over here, Delphine thinks that Cecile is kind of exaggerating the ways that governments would question them in China. She's like, oh my goodness, that would never happen here. That is just so crazy. So these girls are thinking that she is going a little bit crazy and that no one will question them about Cecile. Okay. And that is the end of chapter 12. So let me just go back to our recaps and let us recap chapter 12. So in the beginning, the girls return to the green stucco house around dinner time, right? And Cecile has already picked up more lo mein from Ming's. Delphine asks why they call her Inzilla. She finally says Inzilla is her poet's name. Cecile writes powerful political poetry, and it also means the path in Yoruba. It is a label for her true self, her identity. It's from their true ancestry and heritage, and it's a name for the people and for the cause. So Delphine and her sisters start asking silly questions, and then that's when Cecile jokingly accuses them of being a part of the FBI. All right, so let's go down to chapter 13. And this chapter is called Everyone Knows the King of the Sea. I didn't care what Cecile called her new self or how much dust she blew off paths with her poems. She was Cecile Johnson to me, and I didn't appreciate her so-called new self or her new name. A name is important. It isn't something you drop in the litter basket or on the ground. Your name is how people know you. The very mention of your name makes a picture spring to mind, whether it's a picture of clashing fists or a mighty mountain that can't be knocked down. Your name is who you are and how you're known, even when you do something great or something dumb. So right here, Delphine is talking about how she does not appreciate how Cecile just went and changed her name like that into Inzilla, right? She thinks she's changing herself and becoming someone that is no longer her mother. So Delphine is not really happy about this. Cecile had no trouble dreaming up names for us. All but ours were names she meant for us to keep and not throw away when we decided we had enough of our old selves. According to Uncle Darnell and Big Ma, she had a name ready for Fern, but Papa said, no more of those made-up different names. So, Cecile gave Fern some of her milk, put her in her crib, stood over her for a while, and was gone. So again, this is just explaining that Cecile was there to take care of Fern for a little bit, but then up and left because she did not get her way. She could not name Fern. Although no one thinks I can, I remember a time when smoke filled the house. Not coughing smoke, but smoke from a woman's smooth voice singing with a piano, bass, and drums. Altogether, these sounds made smoke. Uncle Darnell would say, you can't remember that. You were 2, 3 maybe. But I do. I still see, hear, and feel bits and flashes. The sounds of musical smoke, my head on Cecile's big belly. Uncle Darnell said the Vaughn and Veneta came from Vaughan, the singer Sarah Vaughan's name. And when Uncle played the albums Cecile left behind, the ones with piano, bass, drums, and smooth voice Sarah Vaughan, in my mind, smoke still filled the house. So here, remember how we talked about flashbacks and how flashbacks you have to be paying attention? So this is another flashback. Do you notice how the time shifts from the present? And in this paragraph, it is shifting back to the past. And now we will be moving back to the present. So just be aware of those little time shifts here and then. Cecile could go changing her name at the sight of rain. But I was going to stay Delphine. Even after I learned the truth about my name, even that wasn't enough to make me drop my name. My name was the one thing I didn't have to share with another soul in my school. In my last class, 3 Deborahs, 2 Lindas, 2 Jameses, 3 Michaels, and 2 Moniques shared their names. There was also one Anthony whose mama could spell, and one Antony whose mama couldn't. It was no secret they too shared a name. If you hollered Anthony, Antony, or Aunt, both boys' heads turned. My name was my own, and I couldn't imagine that anyone else had it in all of Brooklyn, no matter where we went, Coney Island, Prospect Park, or Shiloh Baptist Church. There was only one Delphine. So Delphine felt proud that she is the only person with her name because she feels like her name is unique. She feels like her name is special. I never thought about what Delphine meant or if it had a meaning at all. It was just my name, Delphine. Had grown and sounded like it was waiting for me to slide into it, like a grown woman slides into a mink coat and clips on ruby earrings. I figured since Cecile didn't have a mink coat or ruby earrings to give me when I grew up, she had dreamed up a name that I would grow into. It was one thing Cecile got right. There was no slice or drop of it that I had to share with my sisters. Then that stupid show had to come on television. The one about the dolphin that saves everyone's lives and corrals the bad guys until the sheriff arrives. At recess or on the school bus, especially on Wednesdays, the day after the TV show came on, the boys would all sing, "They call him Flipper, Flipper, faster than lightning," or something like that. Then they'd start pushing at me to speak in dolphin. Ellis Carter had been the chief flipper singer and whistler on one particular Wednesday. I'd beaten him up real good. I'd made sure it was an unforgettable beating as I could give him, so it would burn in the minds of all the other flipper singers and whistlers. So in these 2 paragraphs, Delphine was getting bullied because her name was similar to Dolphin. Now, Flipper is a show about a dolphin, okay? But she never changed her name. She didn't hate her name even after all of that. So that is just one thing to keep in your head. When I got home from school, my knuckles are still sore from Ellis Carter's jaw. I told Vanetta and Fern to go change their clothes, hang them up neatly. That would save me from ironing them that night. I told them to start their homework, and I'd be back in exactly 20 minutes to help them if they needed it. Again, this is kind of like a flashback. She's flashing back to that night. I told Big Ma I had to get a book from the library and I would be right back. Then I marched to that library to find out for myself. I'd gone straight to the biggest dictionary in the reference section. This was a dictionary so huge you needed both hands to manage turning the pages and making the book stay put. Good old Merriam-Webster. I trusted Miriam because I thought instead of having children she wrote the dictionary. She didn't have anything else better to do. Probably didn't have sisters and brothers to see after, which was why she knew every word in the world. Big Ma would have said Miriam might as well be useful. So Merriam-Webster is actually the name of a dictionary, like we said earlier, But we find out in this little paragraph that Delphine thinks that Merriam-Webster is a person who ended up writing this dictionary. Okay. I turned to the back section, turned past the Z words, past the phrases, the phases of the moon and the metric system, and finally to the given names. I flipped a few pages to get to the female D names. Then I turned and thumbed past Daisy, Daphne, Deanna, Deborah, Della, Dolores, and there it was. The name I had been sure Cecile had dreamed up while she stared out the window as a musical smoke blew through the house. There it was in a book, broken down into 2 syllables, spelled exactly the same. There it was, my name, Delphine. So she's realizing that Cecile found her name actually in a dictionary. Her name is in a dictionary. Vanetta's and Fern's names were not. My nostrils had flared, my breathing raced, my heart pounded, not only in my chest, but throughout my body. This changed everything. My mother hadn't reached into her poetic soul and dreamt me up a name. My mother had given me a name that already was, which she meant she hadn't given me a thing. Not one thing. How could this be? When a woman's deep, smoky voice planted Vanetta's name in Cecile's mind, how could this be when Cecile dreamed up a name for Fern so marvelous that the idea of not being able to give it caused her to get up and leave us? I didn't need to ask any further. The proof was right there. I shared my name with some other Delphine, and she, just like I, according to Miss Merriam-Webster, had been named for a dolphin under the sea. All this time, I'd been holding my head up, feeling superior to Ellis, Willie, Robert, James, and the Michaels, Anthony and Antony, because they were stupid boys. My knuckles still smarted from socking Ellis Carter in the jaw, while he had been telling the truth. I had been named for a dolphin, a big fishy mammal with a wide grin. So Delphine is furious. She's not happy to find out that her name is in the dictionary. She is so angry because it means Cecile did not make it up. She no longer feels like her name is special. She no longer thinks that her name is unique. Okay, so that is why she is so angry. Learning the full truth about my name had been more than I could hear. The librarian got up from her desk and put a Kleenex in my hand. I hadn't even known I'd been making a grand Negro spectacle out of myself, bawling over a word in the dictionary. So that just means crying over a word in the dictionary. The following week, when Flipper came on, I'd gotten up and turned the television set off. Vanetta and Fern bleated like billy goats. But I'd done what I always did and distracted them. I'd said, tonight is game and cookie night. I brought out the Candyland game, poured the milk, and piled a nice stack of Oreos on a plate. I hadn't cared if I'd never saw that grinning mammal again. End of chapter 13. So let's recap really quickly. This chapter, Delphine is not happy about how Cecile just went and changed her name the way she did, changing herself and becoming someone that is no longer their mother, right? Delphine liked her name until the show Flipper came out and kids found a way to tease her about it. She looked up her name in the dictionary and was so angry to find out that her name was in there. She was upset because her name is not unique and it isn't special. She found out that Cecile turned her favorite singer into Vanetta's name and made up a name for Fern, but her name didn't mean anything to Cecile. So this is why she is so angry. Okay, and that is it for chapters 12 and 13.